Welcome back to the show. John and James with you as always. I want to get to a certain player off the hop here, and just because you had some recent experience with him, Matt Rempe, whatever his name is, however you say
That's his name.
He's been a little bit of a wild man. I think a lot of players wanted to crack at him. He came in and fought a bunch. I don't know what his average ice time is. It's got to be less than 5 minutes.
It is.
If I don't want to get into every single thing, and he fought, and it was Reeves, and it was this and whatever. I think at this point, it seems as if he's crossed a line, and now he's done it a few times. He's already been tossed. This is his second. How many games has he played? He's been tossed from 2 already, and now suspended. Did he actually get a 2 to 3 game suspension?
He got a 4-game suspension.
Okay, I mean, so it's adding up already. He got the hearing today. That was a pretty quick suspension call for them. You've seen 2 really ridiculous hits against Devils players. What's your take on this guy? What is it all about?
So, for me, it's just, a matter of a young guy who is just not really he's just gotta be smarter about what he does and when he does it. Like, he tried to be last night against the Devils. He denied Travis McDermott a fight early in the first period. It was like less than 5 minutes into the game, and McDermott was trying to get at him. Now, the context there is that, Rempe in the last meeting between the Rangers and the Devils hurt Nathan Bastian, hit him with another questionable check. So, people had what to say about that. There's an argument to be made that Nathan Bastian put himself in a bad spot. Whatever. Context doesn't matter. It was a big hit that put Bastian out. So McDermott tried to have him answer the bell on that, and he denied it. And it was a smart decision at the time. Now, he might have been under orders not to fight, but the reason why I say it was a smart decision at the time was because the Rangers were in the offensive zone. They had puck possession. They were trying to, or they were about to gain the offensive zone. They had puck possession, and they were about to, try and set up a scoring chance. So it was a smart decision for him to not to take that opportunity at that time. However, at some point in that game, he did need to answer the call for what his actions were in the game prior. So from Monday night's game, you could see his decision making starting to get a little bit smarter up until he elbowed Jonas Siegenthaler in the head, because you can't be just throwing your chicken wing out like that. It was really reckless. So he's got to learn, how to hit the right way. Clearly, he's not, afraid to throw his body around. So he's just got to, have it become a reflex almost to tuck the elbows, to lean with the shoulder and make contact with the chest area, not the head area. Now, it's hard when you're 6'6" and I think on skates like closer to 7 foot, but um regardless, he has to be more aware of his body and just be smarter about what he's doing. I mean, the other thing too is, like, for his own health. He can't keep getting his face pummeled in every game. He's gonna cause damage. So,
Yeah, what I also find it interesting. Like he's a bigger guy, and I know you want to, like you said, throw your weight around it. It just, yeah, learn how to hit a little bit. It's not good for your health. I do think it's interesting. There's discourse that I was seeing around, you know, in the past, it's always, well, you're fighting, and you have to defend yourself after you've made a clean hit, and that's ridiculous. Meanwhile, he's going out there and throwing really dirty hits a lot,
yeah.
and he's not the only Ranger, frankly, that does that. Trocheck is the other one, and Trouba as well. It's like they're the 3 of them. Maybe it's more Trouba than Trocheck, but either way, they have 2 or 3 players that are going out there, and unlike Clutterbuck and Martin, who we've talked about, or at least I know that I've mentioned, I don't like when they go out of their way, like after a player has already throwing the puck up the boards. You see them in the corner of your screen still going for that hit. I'll never understand that. It takes them so far out of the play. They're multiple strides away before that player gets rid of the puck. I'll never understand it. It's not dirty, though. Very rarely are we seeing both of them. They're pesky, whatever. They're not dirty hits. He's kind of come in the league and given himself a reputation. He's got 10 games in the NHL, maybe around there, and he's been thrown out of and now suspended for 4 games. Good news for the Islanders. They won't see him on Sunday for the matinee. The second half of back-to-back. And on St. Patrick's Day, no less. So I there's the clean side of the hits where I understand there's no reason to answer that bell. But yeah, I mean, you kind of need to figure that out. And then you can't go throw another dirty suspension worthy hit.
Right.
It's in today's game, I think there's a lot of players. It goes back even 30 years to like take fighting out of the game or illegal checks to the head. I don't know. I really don't know what the solution is, because you'd think the players would want it out of the game, in which case they would stop it. It's not just they'll get suspended. Clearly they'll get suspended. It's not always consistent, but something will happen. I guess I don't understand from the player's side. Don't do dumb shit. You know what I mean? Like, is it really about protecting your fellow players? Because then the NHLPA comes in. The NHL gives Rempe 4 games, and then the NHLPA is going to what? Defend Matt Rempe to lower the suspension after he just obliterated another player? I'll never understand how those conversations work. So they're meeting, and they're, Siegenthaler's rep is sitting there, across from Matt Rempe's rep. They're in the waiting room, and they're both going to speak with Gary Bettman or George Peros or whoever is in charge of player safety. And they're going to argue both of their players deserve this contradictory things. I don't understand how that's working. I don't understand how those conversations are working.
Yeah, and I think the ruling, like, this is his first offense, right? He hasn't been fined or suspended before.
He's been thrown out of game, though.
He's been thrown out of a game, but he hasn't been fined or suspended, right? So technically, this is his first offense that the Department of Player Safety has had to deal with. Okay,
Sure.
and usually when there's a history, usually when there's lack of a history with these situations, you don't see somebody get this many games this quick. So, although, look, there is certainly going to be people out there that say he deserved more games, and I'm here for that argument. Um, I will say that I thought that he was going to get less than 4, and that's because it was a first time offense, technically, by the Department of Player Safety. So, therefore, them trying to or them assessing him 4 games off the hop tells me maybe they're trying to nip this in the bud. Um, and so it just stops happening this way.
I agree.
They have a young guy who, look, at first, I'll be honest, I was like, this kid's all brawn, no brains, no skill. Like, he might not be in the NHL next week. And then I started, looking at, look, he's not the sexiest player. He's a fourth line guy, maybe a third liner, maybe, but he does the little things that can keep him in a lineup, and he's big. Like, last night, he didn't do anything. He didn't get an assist, but all he had to do was be tall and be big and be distracting, and all of a sudden, the puck is in the back of the net for the Rangers. So I could see the appeal in this guy. He just needs to understand how to use his body better. And by the Department of Player Safety, assessing him a longer suspension than atypical suspensions for first time offenders, says to me, okay, they're trying to get this under control, because it's gotten off to, what was this Linsanity? Remember the Jeremy Linsanity type, hype that they had around him? It's happening with Matt Rempe now. Ranger fans love this guy. You should have heard, every single time he touched the puck, every time his skate blades touched the ice, the crowd was just going nuts for this guy.
I
They
mean,
love
look
him.
at us look at the Islander fans with the fourth line for all those years. And the
Right.
kind of, the blue collar and the hitting, and we've had our fair share of these guys Chris Simon, Michael Haley, who wasn't a big guy, just tough guys, and Konopka, Martin, Clutterbuck.
Yeah,
There's a couple of players in between there that I'm sure that I'm missing. Chris Simon, did I say that before?
you did, yeah.
Um, who's the other guy? Gillies.
Clark Gillies, yeah. I mean,
Um,
Clark Gillies.
I
Brandon Gillies?
not either of
No,
those.
now I'm losing it. Um,
Who
Trevor Gillies.
eventually,
There you go. There it is. Trevor Gillies.
yeah, who eventually went to Russia after he slashed a Ranger in the head. That was something for that. No, that was Chris Simon. Um, but yeah, the Islanders have had their fair share of these guys, and we've been on a similar trajectory as far as cheering them on. And Konopka, you could argue, helped. It took a long time after that, but you could argue he really helped forge the DNA of the team that went back to back conference finals, and the one that we're kind of wishing for today. And it's a different iteration. It just is what it is. But yeah, I wanted to start there just because it's very interesting how that's playing out, and not just Ranger fans, but um, he seems like a dangerous player, and I'm glad that the suspension came down. Like you said, maybe player safety is kind of trying to figure that out earlier than later.
Yeah.
Um, to the island more directly here, um, the trade deadline has come and gone. It's not a whole lot to report from Long Island and Lou Lamoriello. So I guess my question here is: anyone that you're disappointed the Islanders didn't go after, and is it a big deal that they didn't make a move?
You know, so I saw we both saw that tweet, right, from Sportsnet Stats, which is technically true that 4 trade deadline days in a row have come and gone, and the Islanders have not made a deal.
It's a
And
bit. It is on a technicality, but if leading up to the trade deadline,
right,
Lamoriello has done Peugeot, Palmieri,
right.
Andy
So
Green, Zajac, Bo Horvat.
yeah, so there's definitely this narrative right now that, the Islanders stand pat at every deadline, and I don't necessarily agree with that. Obviously, like you said, the aforementioned names. This year, I just felt like the prices weren't a premium where they could have probably gotten somebody who was going to help. Um, right away, I think of, it's not working for Riley Smith in Pittsburgh. Right away, I think of a guy like that. Like, you're telling me you couldn't get that guy? You just bumped up Brock Nelson to the first line, so you can either put, a guy like Riley Smith there and or, you know, keep Nelson there, put Riley Smith on the second line, and just make that a better scoring line because you lost, 40 goals on that line. So, um, now, albeit it's just being reallocated to another line, I get that, but I just felt, the prices were not this astronomical number that they couldn't have acquired somebody up front to help them score a little bit more. And we'll probably talk about last night's game. Um, Look, I get it; they were on a win streak, and that's great. But they scored no goals in LA. And every once in a while, you need somebody who can just fill the net, and that's all Riley Smith really does is fill the net. And actually, honestly, he's good defensively. So I, I have a hard time. And the cherry on top of all that is that the word was that he wanted, not he wanted out, but Pittsburgh was like okay with letting him go. So I don't know. You can't fork over a third round pick for a guy like that. Like that's a move that you make that just makes your team that much better. And
I don't disagree with that necessarily, but is there something to be said though about Lou isn't a rental guy, so if he didn't think he can get a guy signed, he wasn't going to make a deal because he doesn't want to just make the team better for this season. He wants to make it better long term. But is there something to be said about they bring in bringing up and seeing success with McLean and Mike Riley, picking him up
yeah,
and adding the back end? Like, no, it's not that needle. None of it was, well, I mean, the Wild situation has been needle moving. McLean has been also really good. Riley sprung a great pass to uh, Palmieri against Anaheim. So it's not like they're not making an impact. And Riley was pretty good right away. McLean is making his presence known as the Islanders have kind of mixed up some of the centers and just moving everybody up the lineup a little bit. And he's doing really well with the fourth line, whether it's been with Hudson Fashing last game against the Kings or with Martin and Clutterbuck. Is there something to be said about that?
I mean, I think that that's probably right. The acquisition for them this year was Patrick Waugh and his new associate coach and um picking up Mike Riley on waivers. I could understand all that. And look, I think Mike Riley has been dynamite for this team. He really has been. Like he's been so good. Um, but I mean, you you weren't in the playoffs at the time. Like you were in a good way, right? Winning some games and looking pretty good. You could make an argument, okay, we didn't want to mess up the chemistry, but I mean, again, I look at the Anthony Declare trade. I've been banging that drum for a long time. A third round pick and a B prospect. Sign me up. Like he just scored 30 goals a couple seasons ago when he was playing, for a dismal Sharks team where he, had collected a couple points, but wasn't putting up those numbers, sure, but understand he was playing for the Sharks. And sure enough, he scores in his first game with the Tampa Bay Lightning. So, I just look at a trade like that. I look at, I mean, there were some other trades that went down too that I was just like, really, the Islanders couldn't get that guy. Like even Tyler Toffoli. Tyler Toffoli went for a second and third round pick. That's it. No
Yeah, I
conditions.
I
You're
think
gonna
some
tell
of it.
me,
I think some of it's the long term. It's not even about the assets in the long
well,
term. It's they didn't want to spend the assets plus being unable rather to sign that player. He's not a Lou's not been a rental guy
I agree with that.
on the
I
island.
do.
I can't recall what he did with Toronto or the
Right.
Devils, but yeah, I mean, I'm not that disappointed in a big swing. It doesn't seem like even some of the quote big swings or the second tier forwards would have been a big deal necessarily. Um, I think we're starting to see this team actually start clicking, and I think inadvertently what you had been saying about everyone being in their rightful place worked out, just not the way that we thought. Right? It meant Nelson being on that top line. Lee, Pajot, Palmieri has been really good. Cizikas, between two Swedes, has been excellent, moving him into more of an offensive role and being able to use that speed and tenacity, backfilling the Cizikas tenacity with a McLean that's able to kind of push the right buttons. I honestly see if the Islanders do make the playoffs or even down the stretch, that if Martin's out for any amount of time and they put him on LTIR or they, just cap gymnastics, whatever, um, a fourth line of Fashing, McLean, Gauthier wouldn't be bad. That got you so much younger. That gets you so much faster. Um, maybe you do want Clutterbuck in there just for some veteran presence, depending on who that first round opponent is. But it may be the opposite that you need someone quicker. Um, and at that point, you can, the cap is, the whose lines anyway. Everything's made up and the points don't matter. You can kind of do whatever you need with the cap at that point. So there are some options here for the bottom. Really, just the fourth line because the third line looks good. So you're
Yeah.
not really there's really not a whole lot to mess with. I understand maybe even shoring up your second line. I just don't know what you do with some of the players. Like I think they finally found their place right now, and 6-game winning streak. We're going to talk a little bit about that, obviously. Even though it ended, um, there were so many good things that happened that finally clicked. And the LA game might just be, it might wind up being good. We left last podcast and I can't remember what what they had done right before that, but we're like, they need to win like the next week or so of games and
Yeah.
go to California, and, essentially win out, and come back to Long Island, and you're playing, or rather, you're coming back to the East Coast, and you're playing Buffalo, and you're
Right.
playing Detroit, and then the Rangers. You kind of need to come back there in pretty good shape because Buffalo is playing Detroit the week you get back, um, before you play them. So you're not really worried about Buffalo, but if they can beat Detroit and then you can beat Buffalo in within the span of 48 hours, that's amazing. So
Yeah. I
they put themselves in good shape here, and I say run it out. You're learning
yeah.
something under a new coach. It's a little bit of what we had last year, unfortunately, but you actually have a healthy roster, right? Lambert really didn't have that around this time, or he gets Horvat and then Barzal gets hurt. They're together for a cup of coffee together. You never really had your full team, and they were playing like shit anyway. They they
Right.
they fell into the playoffs. Um, at least this year, it seems like they're gonna make it on their own merit under Wah. And I don't know, a bigger part of me than I thought is more okay with them not having made a move.
Yeah, I could totally understand, um, that line of thinking. I could. Um, as we speak, it's the halfway through the second period, and the Detroit Red Wings are down 5-1 to the Buffalo Sabres. So I don't know. The wheels have fallen off in Detroit, I guess.
I mean, it's at the
Um,
right time, right? I think it's gonna be one of
yeah,
those you can't, uh I wouldn't bet on them having the same type of end of the season that Pittsburgh had. But while they're stumbling, if the Islanders can put it together as they have,
yeah.
you're putting pressure on Philadelphia, who's going to be without their head coach for 2 games. That was hilarious. Should have led with that as well after Rempe.
Yeah, we
Um,
could talk about that.
and in Detroit, I mean, you're kind of playing maybe a game with Tampa Bay as who gets what wild card. Um, but yeah, I mean, you'd want the Islanders to get the top wild card so they play the Rangers in
Yeah.
the first round because that would be amazing. But
Oh, that would be.
um, right, the top because the Rangers are behind Florida, so you would have to be in the top wild card to play the second best division leader, correct? Top seed plays the second wild card.
Yeah, that's right.
Um, so they'd have to sneak up past Tampa Bay, which is not out of the question.
No,
Um,
it's not.
so yeah, they play. I'm sorry, they don't play Detroit. They play Ottawa this week. They play Buffalo, Ottawa, Rangers. Right, the on their schedule. I got things.
Um,
Yep,
Buffalo,
Buffalo,
Ottawa,
Ottawa,
Rangers. Yeah,
Ottawa at home. Uh, Rangers, and then you're playing the
Rangers. Yep.
Hurricanes. So, and then they do play the Red Wings next week, next Thursday. So I think
Yeah,
we'll
they
even
do.
have we'll likely have another show even before that, and that'll be a big deal, going into next Thursday. Um, so there's a lot of scoreboard watching, but at least it's interesting. Um, the Islanders already fell down the standings; they're working their way back up. It's been great. Before we get too far away from the trade deadline, I did want to make a comment about how Vegas and to some extent, the Penguins did this for a while, the Avalanche have done this for a while, but I'm not sure Vegas has kept a top pick or a player in their history. Now that has not been that long, but they just traded another first round pick that they made last year.
Yeah,
And
but guess
they're
what?
what's up?
They still have their first round pick for this upcoming draft,
Yeah.
even after acquiring Thomas Hurdle.
So well, yeah, which is amazing, and that was just Mike Greer, GM of the Sharks, just absolutely getting fleeced.
Oh yeah,
Um,
100%.
that's less about the shenaniganery that Vegas is doing with the cap and that Tampa did before, and frankly, like, look, if it's not against the rules, you could discuss the how ethical it is up and down, but if it's not against any rules
Right,
and it's not, I don't, it's not worth discussing. I
right.
think I'm aggravated that my team doesn't do it. And I think that's where, you know what I mean? Like, that's in the back of
Look,
everyone's
this
head.
is
They're mad their GM isn't smart
yeah.
enough to figure it out.
So this is a very good point because I was listening to a lot of opinion on this today, and most of the opinion was, "I hate the Golden Knights because they keep doing this." But if you're a fan of the Golden Knights, you're loving that they keep doing this, and that's just so well encapsulated to the situation. Is that they're the Death Star, right? That's who they are. They're the bad guys. They do this every year. They quote unquote circumvent the cap, and say what you will about doing that, but they're not breaking any rules. They're going for it every year, and if you're a fan of the Golden Knights, you friggin' love it, and the fact that they have a first round pick this year, they made so many major acquisitions. Mantha, um, Hannafin, Hurdle, still holding on to that first round pick, and they're look, where they are in the standings, I'm pretty sure it's not great.
It
They
is very
started off
funny. Like, they went
yeah,
for it and are not secure in a
yeah.
playoff spot at all. They're kind of in
So
the
that
Islanders spot.
Yeah, they have a game in hand on the Blues, who sit 6 points away from them in the second wild card. They're sitting in the second wild card spot. It's not great. It's also not horrible. Um, but they went for it. And they know that, at least Mark Stone's not gonna be back for a little while. Look, a lacerated spleen. It's no joke. So no arguments from me there on, what they're doing with their LTIR situation. But this is how Vegas operates. Take no prisoners.
There's something to be said about making trades for mid 20 something guys who are established and not having to wait for your first rounders to kind of mature. I don't know if eventually it catches up to you if you're able to continue to do it over time. But like I said, I think the Avs are trying to do that in one way or another. The Penguins, their luck finally just ran out. They're going to be in a tough way, I think, moving forward. But they did the same thing. They were able to kind of just get these diamonds in the rough. I don't know if Gensel, they traded for him to begin with, or if he was someone that they had come up um, through the organization. But they were able to kind of do a little bit of both. And yeah, Vegas is just I think doing something that other teams wish they could go do. And there's two ways to go, I think, in the modern NHL: picks and patience, and some trading around the edges and getting your star and buying your time, or trades with aspirations. And I think Vegas is going trades with aspirations of winning back-to-back cups and figuring all that kind of stuff out as you go. And it's working out, right? They missed the playoffs once. They probably said never again under this leadership, and they're just going to keep going for it. And in the West, um, it's them in the Avalanche kind of going head to head here with Edmonton kind of right behind because of Connor McDavid and Draisaitl. I mean, if you want to keep them at bay, you need a deep lineup. You need to be able to kind of be stuck out there with him at any point. Um, and that goes for being out there with Colorado. If you're late in the second or third round, you need to be able to keep up, and that means having a super deep lineup. You need to be able to fill the net kind of at any level. So I don't blame them for doing it. It's within the rules. Who knows what it'll be after that in the future, after the CBA ends. Um, Frankly, I'm just worried about a lockout. Forget about everything else, but I'm sure this will be addressed in one way or another. Um, yeah, I did want to at least mention that. I also wanted to say some good Islander related trades. Bavilier back with Trotz in
Yeah,
Nashville. What a feel good, as close to an Islander trade as you can get here.
yeah. Um, Definitely like to see it. Obviously, made the trade because of the familiarity he had with him. I just hope that Bavilier figures it out. He hasn't, and since he's left the Islanders, he's kind of moved around a bit. He's with Chicago, and then he was with um, where else did he go? He was with Vancouver. Um, and then now he's with the Predators. I just hope he sticks. Funny enough, I was watching on Sunday. I was with my cousin who isn't so much a hockey fan, but he's a gambler. So he was like, "I got money on this game. Who do you like?" And I was like, "Oh,
You tell
well,
him to use the THPN promo code
yes, I did.
on
I said
DraftKings.
yes, use that THPN promo code." And I had said to him, um, well, if you would have asked me before the game, because clearly you're already in the bet, I would have told you to bet the Predators. And he wound up betting the Wild to win by two. And as soon as I said that, Ophelia turned the puck over and the Wild scored. And I was like, oh, well,
Oh, no.
yikes. But and the camera panned right to him. He skated right to the bench and just put his head down. I was like, oh, Bo.
Dude,
But I just hope he
it
figures it
sucks.
out. Yeah,
Yeah,
it sucks.
same.
He's a former first round pick. Like he obviously has the goods. We've seen him with the flashes of really good hockey. I just hope he could be, a consistent player somewhere at some point.
I mean, he's a folk hero on Long Island. Yeah, game
Right.
6, we'll always remember that. It stinks, like, I think Bailey's in the same way, but Villiers, um, and this next guy, Kyle Oposo in his own way, kinda like Franz Nielsen, who we talked about a couple episodes ago. Oposo goes to Florida. I don't think
I
anyone's
just sent
rooting
you
for
that
f
picture, by the way.
You need to send me
I
a
sent.
picture?
I just sent you the picture on Twitter of him in a Predator, Panthers jersey. So strange to see.
Oh, I bet it is. But, again, I don't think anyone's gonna be rooting for Florida, but you gotta be an Oposo fan. Just like he's kinda gone through it in Buffalo. His exit from New York was, I think, just sad that the team was ready to move on at that point. And, now we're 2 iterations of this team removed, where that was a core that we moved on from. It was not really long after that, there was no more Tavares, there was no more Nielsen, there was no more Oposo, there was no more Molson. Just kind of moved on from that iteration. Um, and then it was no more Boychuk, Letty, Bailey, but now Bavillier. There's parts of this team that moved on, and he's from such an era that's really a long time, almost 10 years ago now. But I, I, I just want him to do well. Like, if it means Florida wins the cup and watching him do that, I think that'd be great. I'm not rooting for it along the way, especially if they have to go through the island. But it's super cool to see that as well.
Do you have other potential sort of Islander related news to speak of?
Just one more thing, and I don't think it really requires a whole lot. Um, is it time when oh yeah, it's super weird, the post on that jersey. That's
Yeah, right?
that's super weird.
Wearing
Um,
number 8.
yeah, wearing number 8. Is it finally time for us to move on from Tarasenko? Another Florida acquisition. Like, can we just not ever bring him up? He doesn't want to come to Long Island. It just is so irrelevant at this point. Like, I just don't want him to come up in conversations anymore. I want to just ignore the whole thing moving forward.
Yeah, I think because it's at where it's at now, um, if it hasn't happened already, it's not gonna happen, which means, this summer he'll sign on Long Island, so
He has another year left, if I'm not mistaken.
um, okay, so then next summer, whatever.
Yeah, I just have to. Yeah, I just want to be kind of done with it. What's
So
your next
the
news here?
so I'm scrolling through, social media at the moment just to I was looking for that Okposo picture, and I see Joshua Hosang, who just released a rap song today. Might have been a whole album. I'm not sure. As well as beginning his journey as an entrepreneur, he released an app called PUP, for pickup play, and you could like find local, which is actually kind of cool. It's a cool concept. You can find local pickup games to play sports with other people. That's kind of cool. I don't particularly listen to a ton of rap. I don't particularly listen to a ton of new rap, I should say. Therefore, I don't know if this is good or not. I haven't listened to it myself, and I'm not going to pass judgment on it. I just noticed and saw today that Joshua Hosang is a rapper.
I saw this too, and I really meant to listen to it. Um, It's an entire album. It's 18 songs. Um, the first one is "It's Time to Grow Up,"
Yeah,
um, which I'm sure he's heard a number of times in his Islander tenure and maybe along the way. God, that's one of those just I don't even know if it the one that got away because there were just so many of those first round picks that were just
yeah,
bad or just like didn't work out. Um, Niederreiter is really the only one that just worked out, just not here.
yeah,
Luckily, we have not been bitten in the ass by Hosang lighting it up for Toronto or something like that, or like the Rangers somehow. Dow Cole was the same. Bellows is the same. Bellows is, I believe, still with Toronto. I've kind of lost track of that. He was with the Marlies. We've been real lucky that we haven't been bitten in the ass by any of these, and they've just been like bad players.
yeah.
Not bad players, just like they didn't
They
shake
haven't
out
been
as a
NHLers.
and so I don't want to be too hard on Josh Hosang because I think for a long time we just wanted him to work. We saw a lot of potential there, and it just friggin' didn't.
Yeah,
Um,
apparently one of the songs is about regret in his tenure in the NHL. I think it was Islander related. I'm not too sure. I just saw that note.
yeah, I'm not. I don't listen to a ton of rapper hip hop either. Um, I don't know how much of this I really want to go through. Um, we'll see. It's definitely interesting. I'm glad that he's kind of finding another outlet here, and um, somehow his name just keeps popping up forever in
Yeah.
Islanders country. So I guess it just won't end here. Um, we're gonna take a quick break. We're gonna catch our breath. We're gonna come back on the other side. Um, talk about the winning streak, what went really well, what didn't, specifically against the Kings, and the upcoming schedule, and some of the lineup stuff. So, give us a second. We'll be right back. We know hockey games move fast, but with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, you can score faster than anything happening on the ice. This week, new customers can bet $5 and get 200 instantly in bonus bets. Take the action on any of the NHL's upcoming games, including Lightning Panthers, Rangers Islanders, or Avalanche Oilers. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app with code THPN. New customers bet just $5 on the NHL and get 200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code THPN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467369. In Connecticut, help is available for gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 186 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. NHL and the NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League. So I want to jump into the 6-game winning streak. And Mike Kelly, I don't know if you saw his thread on
I
Twitter
did.
kind of outlining a whole bunch of just the great things that the Islanders were doing um, through the Anaheim game. This was out before the game against the Kings. Um, any big takeaways from that thread that you saw from the good things that the Islanders were doing?
Yeah, huge takeaways. I mean, um, the per 60 defensive splits, the Islanders are holding on to or suppressing offensive zone possession for the other team for like a full minute per game. They're suppressing like 3.5 slap shots per game, 2.5 rush chances, almost a whole expected goal um, and actual goals. Like defensively, they've been better. Offensively, they've been better. You know, you could just say all those same things in reverse, like holding on to the puck now for a whole full minute longer, stuff like that. So, um, I was saying this to somebody yesterday. I was like, "Oh, go figure. If you have the puck more, it's harder for the other team to score." What a concept. And that's what, Patrick Waugh's really done is he's dug in deep with this, system that he believes in and his coach, his assistant coach or associate coach believes in. Um, it's something that's worked for him at like all levels, and he was doing it with the Avalanche, and that's what made them, go on these great runs that they went on. And now, it's working for the Islanders. And you know, I do say this a bit tongue in cheek because I don't want to, I feel like this season you and I have been on this roller coaster where it's like they have a really great week and we're like this team is back, and then they have a really bad week and they're like, what is this fucking team? This team sucks. So I want to hold out my reservations on or my opinions on what this team is right now. That's a question that's come up a lot lately. Like I'll throw on Marek and they'll be like, "Who are the Islanders?" And I'll throw on Saravalli and again, "Who are the Islanders?" I'm like, I get it. Who are they right now? I don't even know, right? So did Patrick Waugh figure out this team? They've certainly had some impressive wins lately. The Stars, to name one, the Bruins to name another, right? Then they go out to California, they take care of business like they're supposed to, right? Lost to the Kings last night. You could say that um, it was time for them to take a loss. Those things happen. Um, so I think that they look really good right now. Is it going to stick, or are we going to go on the you know has the roller coaster peaked and it's about to go down again? Right? Like is that where we're at? So I'd like to see how they respond from losing a 3-0 game, right? They got shut out. And I wonder if that's one of those momentum swinging games where it's like, okay, you won a bunch of games, but then you didn't score at all against the Kings, who are not great themselves right now, right? They're sputtering here and there, or they
And
they
they
win a
beat them a
couple, they
couple
lose a
weeks ago,
couple.
didn't they?
They did. Yeah, they did. But certainly I certainly want to see how they respond before I sit here and I say, "Yep, Patrick Ross figured them out," because I think he's done a fantastic job. It's nothing to do with him. I just want to see if the personnel on the roster can sustain this, can keep this consistency.
Yeah, I hope that they're just peaking at the right time and
Could
that
be.
this is just a new level that they're able to reach. They were outscoring opponents. I think they had 30 goals in the 6 games, and they allowed 15. Um, that's that's phenomenal. And just to be more specific on some of the on the stats, they're spending a full minute less in their own zone and then almost a full minute more in the offensive zone. They're suppressing shots. Their expected goals per game is up half a goal a game, and their actual goals a game is up 6/10 of a goal per game. So that's pretty amazing considering now there's a bigger sample size of WA, right? And you have a winning streak, and obviously things are going to look good for the most part. But it wasn't even like they won a game that they maybe shouldn't have. Um, they weren't always super clean the whole time, but something that Ethan Sears posted, that I saw making the rounds on Twitter was that they're finally being honest about the reasons they're losing, or even in a good game, what are the things that went wrong? And most recently the Kings, I think it was obvious, but it's nice to hear directly from the coach. Yeah, we went 0 for 5 on the power play. That was an okay game that we were down. It was a 2-0 game essentially with an empty net goal. And yeah, the power play went 0 for 5. You're not going to win hockey games like that. And you're not going to win a playoff series like that. So I think it's something that could be a key moving forward. And clearly it was. It could have been 7 in a row and really sitting pretty. Buffalo's beating Detroit. You could have been in a real good spot this week. I think they still are. I think they're controlling their future as much as they can here. Um, and the right things are happening around them. But, it's stuff like that. You got to concentrate on it. And that's just a big shift. We're talking about all the things on the ice, but off the ice, it sounds like they're finally being honest. There's a little more accountability, or a lot more accountability. The lines are finally where they should be. Um, it seems like there's a different vibe, and in a good way, a culture change for a team that, I don't know how much I buy into the country club aspect of things. Things just got there really wasn't accountability. Um, I saw a Dan from Lighthouse and Islanders Anxiety made a comment at some point about, what a player like Mayfield making all these mistakes. He's got a contract. Like, what is he worried about? He's not going anywhere. Like, he's already got his contract. Like, there's no pressure. And during a win streak, not making any deals at the deadline, you could say, in a second, this could go away. This could go south again, as you said. They peaked too early. Um, it was just a 6-game winning streak. It wasn't, they didn't set the world on fire. They didn't, win out the rest of their games or something, like go 25-0. But um, you hope they didn't peak too early. You hope that they still have something to play for, and that is something's motivating them. Uh, Waz super emotional. I think that's really helping push this team forward. So hopefully they can just kind of rebound. The LA game is a little bit of a reset. Very winnable games. A revenge game against the Rangers. Right? They haven't played since then. Um, since the Stadium Series. So you have a bit of revenge kind of going in there. You really need to just kind of take care of business these next 3 games. Um, you want to win a game in OT, whatever you got to do. I think that was impressive too. A lot of regulation wins here for the Islanders, other than Dallas. Um, so that's good news in that category. They need the regulation wins, um, and they're finally looking pretty good there. But yeah, I think I like that being on. There's a little more honesty. There's a little more accountability. It seems. Anything else from the win streak that you want to point out? Palmieri Nets 20. His 20th.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what I was gonna say. Palmieri's just been like they're getting the best out of him. There's Patrick Roy squeezing every ounce of Barzell out of him that he can. Like Horvat and Nelson on his line look excellent. So
Nelson's gonna hit 30
um,
goals.
yeah, Nelson's he's a lock for 30 goals every year at this point. It's they look really good. I think they were even happy with their loss yesterday, which is something I think is important. That I had said to you the other day or last week. I was like, listen, like their losses even look better than what their losses were previous. So um, yeah, I think that you know I think they certainly have the swagger right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a team. You're right. I think they finally got a little bit of swagger. I think Wah behind the bench, it's got to make you feel good having a guy like that, Stanley Cup winner, Conn Smythe, one of the top goalies of all time. They all grew up watching him in some capacity, um, replays or live or whatever the case was. It's got to just feel good at this point. You've seemingly put a lot of bad habits behind you. Your good players are playing well. Some new lines are clicking for you. Um, the big list of blown third period leads, burn the tape. They finally were able to do that and shake some of those habits. You're getting some good games out of Pierre Engvall, he used his speed and
Yeah,
love that goal. The Palmieri breakaway goal was real cheeky. Not 5-hole, just kind of stuck on the backhand past the goalie.
it's kind of like
Real
trickled over the goal line and just
real
like
slow.
yeah,
Um,
it was
you
almost
know,
like a taunt. I know it wasn't, but it
yeah,
felt like it was.
the power play clicking with Nelson, Barzell, and Horvat. Um, Barzell laid a huge hit. Was that the LA
Yeah,
game? Um,
yeah, it was. It was like the
ju-
biggest hit of his career.
right? And so you just these. It's a whole different feeling around this team where they're all playing a little bit bigger, and it didn't take a big trade. It didn't take um, a player fighting and all that stuff. Your fourth line getting limited minutes. You're getting the most out of them. McLean scored another goal. Maybe that was last episode, but he's playing really well. I think I said that earlier. Um, you're just getting, I think, the most out of everybody. Peugeot's playing really well with Lee and Palmieri. Like I think it's the right timing for everything finally. And Bashing returns. I think that's really good. Um, I I don't want Martin to be hurt. I don't think we're never rooting for that. But if he's out for a little bit and Fashing is ready to go, that's a welcome addition and a little more speed, a little younger on that fourth line. Um, Presumably McLean and Fashing have spent some time together, although Fashing's been with the Islanders for the majority of the last 2 seasons. And McLean's been in Bridgeport. So it's maybe there's chemistry there. Maybe they just play a similar style. I think that works together. And like I said, it keeps that line a little young. And the bottom half of that lineup a little younger, which it just won't hurt. So it's good to see. It's amazing how, they're just a different team now. And seemingly they just decided, like, there was a breaking point and they reached it, whatever conversation, or maybe it was unsaid, and they just walked into the rink the next day and we're a different team. And however that shook out and however we got here, it's freaking irrelevant. But they're just so much different now. It's kind of amazing. Their upcoming schedule, we talk Buffalo, Senators, Rangers. The biggest one there might be the Rangers for their own confidence. We'll likely do an episode earlier next week, probably after these 3 games. Can they take the 6 points? Is it possible here?
I don't see why not. I mean, if they continue playing with the swagger that they are, I mean, like Buffalo is a team that they should beat. Now, I could see, a young team who's pretty much like got no, pressure on them at this point, right? They're not making the playoffs. I could see them, they're ringing up the Red Wings for 7 goals right now, and there's still like half the game left. But again, the Red Wings are sputtering. The Rangers are going to be a tall order. I think the Hurricanes are certainly a taller order now at this point. I mean,
Yeah, next week.
their goaltending is what it is, but um, the schedule is decent. I think they can certainly at least next week. Look, I mean, whenever they play the Rangers, I mean, it's always they always put their best foot forward. I could see them getting mollywopped by the Hurricanes and then rebounding well against, the Red Wings,
Mollywopped?
so
When did you
yeah.
visit the 1940s?
Oh, I mean, I don't know. It's just in my vocabulary. You like that?
I don't know. Who are you hanging out with? What is
My 1-year-old been
your
watching
new
Bluey for like freaking week.
you moved to New Jersey, you're just sitting in front of a deli now with 4 old grandpas and just learning, like, smoking a cigar. It's like whippersnappers. What am my grandpa used to say, shellacked? That's always a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like shellac.
Um, I have not heard that one though. What do you have, like, 1940s word of the day?
Maybe that's what I'll start. You have your thing on, and maybe I'll make mine. I'll do 1940s word of the day.
Yeah, I don't know. That's something. Um, you're always surprising me. First the haircut, and now your vocabulary is just,
That's right, baby.
yeah. You're gonna take over for Stan Fisher and just say old timey names and descriptions of things now?
You never know.
And that's
I got
where, go ahead.
I got to keep you on your toes. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, we're well over 200 episodes in. We love Stan. I'm just busting his chops, but I don't know him, but obviously Stan Fisher's a fixture in, hockey and New York hockey. But that's where we got our name from.
Yeah,
He used to, in articles, I'm sure you could find it on NHL.com. On occasion, he called the Islanders the Nassau Men, for reasons you could probably come up with yourself. And when we were trying to come up with a name for the show, I couldn't tell you what the other names were at this point. And we're about at our 4-year mark here. 5 seasons in. Um, it was around this time that um, the before times ended, and we were all stuck inside. It happened to be around the same time we started this
Yeah.
podcast. And if you followed us since the beginning, I don't know how too many of you that have done it. We had 2 other hosts in
Yeah.
the beginning, um, which was chaos, I think, and and
How we
not,
have evolved.
no heat to those dudes. It was just 4 people on a show,
Yeah.
all remote. Was tough. It'd be different if we were all in a room, but it was a little hard to manage. Um, and I'm sure it would be super embarrassing to go back and look at those. I'm not gonna do that.
Well, yeah,
Um,
that's what I'm saying, like, how we have evolved, like, you know, now I'm a full-time reporter, for God's sake, and, this pod is over 200 episodes in, and it's like, this
yeah,
is, I guess, I don't know, we just know what we're doing now. It's it's like
yeah.
breathing at this point.
I think for a while we were trying to find our voice and who, who is gonna be, we were trying to figure out is it an Elliot, uh, Jeff Merrick thing? Is it um, we were super into a bunch of different podcasts and we're just trying to pick out any little thing, and um, eventually we just found our own footing. I'd like to think anyway that we found our own footing. Um, but yeah, it's much easier now. I think we put a little less pressure on ourselves. Um, Obviously, growth is fun, but I like where we are, and we got to meet some great people on the way. We had some great interviews. It's been a while since we've had someone on the show, though. And we should probably look into that again. Anyway, do you want to play our game
Let's play the game.
to end the show? Yeah. Random number generator. I hope this is fun. Someone comment on a YouTube video or on Twitter, like, is this good? Do you like this? It's not really in depth. It's just really interesting to kind of go back in time just to see random Islander players. 34. Someone jumps immediately to mind. Um,
Yeah, that's, Thomas Hickey most recently.
Thomas Hickey most recently, Cole Bardreau, Jan Denis. Um,
Was
and
that
of
was that Berard?
It was Berard as well, who's right behind me. One of these 4, above my stage right shoulder. Um, Here's one, and I think there's another. He's also on this wall somewhere over here. You can't really see him. The Beezer, John Van Viesbroek, in his
Oh, yeah.
one season with the New York Islanders in 2001, in that weird era where it wasn't Luongo anymore. They get DiPietro. There's, Kevin Weeks is in the mix. John Van Viesbroek's in the mix.
Yeah,
He's just kind of
wow.
carousel of goalies at this time. I'm gonna click on this roster. This is gonna be a its own uh, journey here. So Van Viesbroek, Wade Flaherty somehow stuck it out there. That was like Tommy Salo, Wade Flaherty, Eric
Yeah.
Keeshow, late mid to late 90s Islanders with Tommy Soderstrom. Rick DiPietro and Chris Terreri, if you remember, was
DiPietro
also
wore
an Islander.
34 for a little bit?
Van Viesbroek, yeah, 34. I think he's on this. He's right behind me. He's covered up, but he's there. Um, a lot of goalies. Where there's only so many names I know from uh, way back here, but um, I think one that most Islander fans will really remember, and maybe other than Berard, the most famous for a single game, number 34, Wade Dubowitz, with the famous Easter Sunday poke check to get the Islanders in the playoffs against the New Jersey Devils. I remember exactly. I think I was in New Jersey that day or on Staten Island or something. I remember watching that game during Easter dinner.
Yeah.
Obviously not at the dinner table. And I vividly remember watching that game. Uh, Doobie is who played 43 games in the NHL and none more important um, than the poke check game. Do you remember that at all?
Very vaguely. I don't remember too much about it to like comment on it, honestly.
It is seared uh into my brain. I wanted to look it up on this date. Yeah, April 8th, 2007. And the Islanders famously were not good in the playoffs that year. They really weren't um very good a bunch of those years that they made the playoffs. I think the Toronto series is probably the best one. They lost to Ottawa, they've lost to Buffalo, they lost to Tampa in the years that they were making the playoffs before, pre Tavares, before 2008. And a lot of those years were just really bad. So that's the one that sticks out to me the most. And um, the jerseys were weird. Um, Oh, that was a good one, actually. I'm sorry. Those were the jerseys I wish they'd go back to. Or maybe they'd make an orange with the 4 stripes on the shoulder. Uh, that was a good time. But yeah, stops Sergey Brylin, um, and wins it in a shootout for the Islanders. Richard Park, Tambellini's on that team.
Yeah,
Um,
wow. That's like that was early Franz Nielsen, right?
that early, that's interesting. Give
I
me
think that
1 second.
might have been early Franz or at some point with at least that regime, like the
2000,
Tambellinis and them.
2007, 2008. Um, Brian Berard came back for that season, if you remember.
Yeah.
So that's very
So
funny.
Nielsen was on that team?
Um, Franz Nielsen was on that team. Uh, Radek Martinek, Oposo, Richard Park, Shatan was still on the team. Um,
Was that Garin too? Garin there at that point or no?
no, I think oh, Bill Guerin, you're right. You're right.
Oh, I'm
Um,
on fire.
Fedotenko,
Oh my
Mike
God,
Comrie,
Fedotenko. Is that
Blake.
Bruno Gervais?
Um, that
Or
is,
is that
yeah, Bruno Gervais in that era. Sean Bates is still on the team. Bergenheim, Marc-Andre Bergeron.
my God, Bergenheim? I remember thinking that that guy was going to be something.
Right, there was a period where the Islanders had, like, a couple players, and you're like, "Ah, just hit." And, God, he just
Super
super
didn't.
didn't.
Super didn't.
Uh, Mike Comrie, I remember him. Um,
Yeah.
Jeremy
Hillary Duff.
Colleton, another one. Chris Campoli. Uh,
Oh my God, Chris Campbell. Is that Shrimp? That's Shrimp, right?
is Shrimp on this roster? Hold on. I'm not seeing him. He was around this time period, though.
Yeah, I know he was on the team when Tavares actually was on the team for like a hot second, right?
Yes, that might be a year or 2 after this.
Yeah, so
Uh,
it's maybe a little later.
I'm gonna
'Cause
check the next year.
I do remember him in the remember when they went back to the sweater they wear now for like the first year, he was on that team. So
Maybe that was 2009, 10.
yeah, that might have been
Yep.
it.
Yeah, Rob Schremp, who was born, about 15 minutes north of here, or over where I live,
Look at that.
um, coincidentally. Um, yeah, this was really fun, kind of going through those rosters. Brendan Witt as well. Uh, yeah, who's the
Brendan Witt.
Ted Nolan as the coach. That was also the year Al Arbor came back, um, and won his game and his coach's 1500th game. Um, yeah, that was for a while, that was kind of something everyone, and that was like the next Bates penalty shot was this one moment that we were able to hold on to for really quite some time. It took years and years before they got back to anything meaningful, and that was 2013 when they finally got back into the playoffs and gave the Penguins a pretty good run there. I was at one of those games. It was a lot of fun. I think Game 3 at the Coliseum. Um, all right, I think. All right, that was a good one. 34. That
That
was a
was a
great.
good one,
That,
yeah.
that was a great number. Um, we didn't get down that same rabbit hole with 51 and 42, but um, and we forgot to do it last episode. And we were kind of in a rush too. Um, I think we're all set. What do you think?
I think we're good to go, buddy.
All
This
right.
was a good one.
Yeah, this was a good one. Please rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen or watch the show. Follow us on social media at Aspen Hockey. Find James' work at New Jersey Hockey Now, and comment on everything that you hope that the Devils beat all the teams we need them to beat and lose just enough to not catch the Islanders. Although they
They
seem like
won't.
they won't. That's just great news to hear. And James, bring us home, buddy.
Until next time, all. Let's go Islanders.